Hey everyone, my name is Matt. Welcome to my shop. Today is November 21st and this is my weekly shop update. Hope everyone is having a great week. It has been fairly productive for me, which has been nice. So today we're going to take a little bit of a updated look at the epoxy slab table thing, talk a little bit more about the finishing process on there. I have a lot of progress on the trailer that I've been building, and just to kind of kick things off, I've also started working on my little router bit cabinet, which is going to be pretty similar to the hand tool cabinet. It's going to be made from elm, so I got some nice elm for that. And the joinery on this thing is going to be, again, mitered through dovetails. So in the evenings, after the kids are asleep, and I've been out here for like a half hour to an hour, using the metal saw to cut parts for the trailer while sitting here at the bench dovetailing these things. So that's been kind of a nice sort of collaborative thing. By collaborative, I mean using a tool that kind of works by itself while I'm working on something else. So I have that as like a woodworking outlet for now, and that's gonna go on the wall somewhere in here and house all the router bits that I have, because I have nowhere to put them right now and they're like everywhere and I can never find anything. So I like this, having everything nice like this. So I'm gonna try and extend this concept to some of the other areas in the shop, like the router stuff. So that is that. Let's take a look at this thing over here. So here's a look at the tabletop so far, or yeah, I think it's going to be a tabletop is what I decided it's going to be. It is, I think I'm done with finish at this point. So the top surface has 7 coats and the bottom side has 5. So I need enough finish buildup to then finish the finish, or basically polish the finish on top of everything else. So you need enough surface buildup to have something to chew through and burn through as you're doing that polishing process. So I got a lot of questions on this last week about a little more detail on this finishing process. So I made a video 5 years ago on my wipe and varnish finishing process. I will leave you a link to that if you haven't seen it. But this is just a wipe and varnish, just happens to be Armor Seal, and I just use a rag to apply that, wipe it on, and all of that. So the finishing process itself is the same as everything else that I've ever finished, and the exact process I showed in the video. The only difference this time is the sanding between coats are going to be more aggressive. So on a piece of wood, I'll just hand sand that lightly to get rid of any dust nibs or anything like that. On epoxy, epoxy hides no sins. So the finish sitting on top of this has to be absolutely flawless and perfect. So if there are any waves, if there's any streaking in that finish, it'll be very visible on here. And what an aggressive sanding between coats does is it knocks down all the high spots, levels everything out, and gets it all ready for the next coat. It's also going to remove any dust nibs or anything that's settled in the finish as well. So that's really the only difference between finishing over epoxy and finishing over wood, is just that between coats sanding. Much more aggressive, much more necessary, because you can literally see every single defect in this epoxy. So this is going to sit and cure for probably about a week, just to make sure this finish has enough time to fully harden, and then I'll come back and do some fine sanding and give it its final polish. The one thing that is going to be happening with this is all done with a gloss wipe and varnish, which allows me to then use a polishing process to establish the actual sheen that I want. So I'm not really looking for something this glossy, so that'll get all knocked back to the exact sheen and all that stuff. So this is coming along. It's been kind of fun because this is like a fast thing to do. Come out here and in like a few minutes, like 3 minutes, you have a coat of finish on and you go do something else. So it's not, hasn't been too bad at all. So that is this thing. I'm really happy with the way it's looking, and the figuring in here is freaking ridiculous. So the trailer has come a long way since last week, and by a long way I mean like 6 feet from where it was on my sawmill bed last week. That's my my funny attempt for the day. So this thing has a lot of progress on it. Everything is welded out to the point it's at right now, so it's all fully solid. Everything's ready to go. I have a couple little gusses to add here onto the tongue, and then I'll be adding the decking on here. So this thing is coming along pretty nicely. Now, I do want to take a moment to talk a little bit about flipping this thing, because I'm really happy that this method actually worked out pretty well. So the construction methodology I had in mind was the ability to position the entire assembly in any position that made the welding easier. So I came up with, well, I didn't really come up with it, I just thought this might work really well to have this whole trailer on a rotisserie. So as you can see right now, it's just floating out there in space, and you can spin the entire assembly around to whatever angle you want, so you can weld at a flat position for everything. So I was able to fully weld all the seams except for one seam in this entire project in the flat position. So the welds are looking pretty nice, but the whole thing with flipping it is you can build it where you only have to flip it once, and for me, I want to be able to flip it around as many times as I want without having to spend a bunch of time trying to get a frame to spin. So yeah, this works out really nicely, and it's kind of fun to play with. Whee! So this is moving along pretty nicely. Right now I am shooting video number 4, I think. I still have to finish up the introduction video. The weather has been cooperating nicely for me here. So it's been unseasonably warm, so I've been trying to get through as much of this as possible before it gets really cold. So a little bit of a delayed start with the videos here, but they are in production, which is kind of nice. So expect to start seeing those pretty darn soon. I'm excited. We're gonna get some decking on here, and it's gonna start looking like another trailer. And there's one more little thing that I want to share this week. So yeah, I bought a mini skid loader. So I'm thinking I'm gonna do a video on just talking about this thing and my decision-making process there as to why I got this thing. But I guess the short version is that I needed a more efficient way to handle materials sort of downstream. So once things are ready to get out of here, or once they are ready to get dried or moved or sold, I just need a more efficient way of getting these things out of here. So I can load a trailer full of slabs with a pry bar and a roller, but it just takes too long. So there's that. And as far as the size of the machine, I need something small enough that I can then store in my shed. So there's that too. So there's not a whole lot of things that'll fit in there. I also need something that I can drive on the lawn without absolutely destroying it. And it's already hard enough with this thing to not do that, but at least I don't have a bunch of ruts everywhere. So there's that. So with the machine comes a trade-off of I don't have as much room now. The shed is my storage place for dried lumber. So I'm also looking at a slightly different business model as far as selling all the lumber, in that I don't inventory or carry any inventory that's dried. So if it's not already sold, it's not going to get dried. I'm not going to take it to the drying process unless I already have a buyer. Because once you dry this stuff, you got to have somewhere to store it. That's always been the shed for me. And now that I have more stuff, I have less room for inventory essentially. So that's where things are at with me right now. So that is what I've been up to this week. Let's take a look at some viewer projects. First this week is a bar by Chris. It's framed with 2x4s that Chris cut on a sawmill and 3 pine slabs to the top, trimmed in cedar, which is also cut on a sawmill. The wood is burned to bring out the grain and is finished with 3 coats of urethane. Next is a toboggan by Steven. Steven made this toboggan a couple of years ago for his grandkids. Steven built a form and then steam bent all the parts to make up the front curve of the toboggan. Next is a tea box by Adam. Adam made this tea box for his mother, and the lid is made from wild pear and the sides are made from elm. You can find more of Adam's work over on Instagram. Last this week, in the spirit of steam bending, is the steam bent chair by Robin. This was Robin's first time steam bending as well as chair making. The chair is made from Tasmanian oak and marabou. It took him 6 weeks to make, and he says he's totally hooked on using bent wood. And Robin has a video over on his YouTube channel covering the entire build, so definitely check that out. Robin is a fun guy, and I do like his videos as well. So I think that's probably about it for me this week. Thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments about anything I talked about today or anything here in my shop, please feel free to leave me a comment. As always, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. And until next time. Happy working.